Hey.
Yeah, pretty much know almost everyone. My name's Nathan Viney, and I was asked to talk here about my comic strip Walpole Kids, which I've been working on since the middle of last year in a little town called Walpole, southwest of WA. So, who's been to Walpole? Yeah, nice. So what? I don't really know why I was asked necessarily to come here, but I sort of figured it was the location that I based my comic around, and how that it works for me. It works for the comic. It has a uniqueness. It's not necessarily a fictional place. It's not necessarily city-based or urban. It's pretty rural. I hate that word. So here we go. That's where it is. It's quite far away, really. Anyway, well, I guess I'll just tell you a little bit about Walpole, which is it's famous for the treetop walk and the beautiful nature and beautiful inlets. There's so much to explore there and adventure, and so it's just perfect inspiration for something creative. So before I talk about how Walpole Kids came about, I'll talk a bit about myself and how I got to this comic, and sort of the reasoning for why I created it. When I was growing up, like a lot of people in this building, very much into comic strips. Here are some of my inspirations. Charlie Brown, the Dennis the Menace from the UK, Calvin and Hobbes, and Jamie Hewlett's Gorillas artwork. This is all stuff I was reading when I was a kid, and you can probably see it in a lot of my artwork. Not as good, but in its own way, there's elements of all of those four things in my strips. And it just inspired me, all of these things, plus more, inspired me to just get in there, make some comics, create characters, create some stories, and that then led me on to making my own comics. Another thing that I was really inspired by was the newspapers. I don't know how many of you, when you were younger, pulled up the West Australian or the Sunday Times and flipped to the comics straight away. And that's what I used to do, to check out which ones were in there, and just planted this little seed in me that was just like, well, what if I could be in a newspaper one day? That's the goal. And that stayed with me ever since I was reading the newspaper. I don't know what it was, like the texture of the print, something amazing about it. I love it. Anyway, Chris will know this. I started drawing with Chris. He's one of the reasons actually that I draw. But this is Tomothy, my really early character, one of my first characters, Tomothy, who I actually ended up making a zine about. This was in 2018, which was my first time at the Perth Comic Arts Festival. I haven't been here since, but this was released, I think, around 2018. It was my Tomothy zine. He obviously changed a little bit, but so that character stayed about. And then I moved into animation, because I just saw that I really wanted to make things move. Where am I at? Yeah. But the thing about Tomothy, just like if you've ever seen this zine, is that it was, I don't know if you could see, but at the end of the day, I was always trying to create a newspaper comic. It's 4-panel strip, 4 panels, punchline at the end. Even though this book is a story, it's still a newspaper strip. So I was always trying to get in a newspaper. Unfortunately, Tomothy wasn't of any interest to anyone. That's okay. There's me at the festival, and there's me today. I have the same table mat. Go and check it out at the table. We're selling some of the same stuff as well. There's the book. That's in a Walpole art shop, actually. It's really, they've got loads of great artists down there. Okay, so there's the next bit. So I started animation, so the idea of leading up to Walpole Kids is that I'm trying to find a project that works for me, gain some sort of success, just something that I can continue doing that doesn't, that doesn't take too much time outside of day jobs, but I can still work with my passion. And at that time I studied animation and I was working on a bunch of animated shorts. This one was really popular. So I started making Doctor Who animated shorts. They got a lot of success on YouTube in the early days, but YouTube's obviously changed. And so what eventually happened was animators were having trouble gaining views, earning revenue, all of that on YouTube because there's so much competition, and obviously YouTube changed its rules as well. So what happened was I was working for up to half a year on one project that I was very passionate about, that I want to get out there, but unfortunately it wouldn't really get much back from me with the view count or any revenue. So it became very difficult because spending a whole year on something outside of work really intensely is very exhausting. And a lot of people would argue that comics take as much time, and that's completely true as well. If you have a look at what we've got downstairs, there's some amazing detailed things, but obviously my comics are quite simple. That's the style I like to go, so they're actually quicker. So they work out quicker than animation, which is pretty obvious really when you think of how long animation takes. What's next? George. So I don't know if anyone here knows George. So I started, this is another YouTube endeavor. A lot of my endeavors were on YouTube, trying to get that modern money in. But yeah, so this was some YouTube videos where I played an old man on Grand Theft Auto, and the old man it was hilarious. I'll explain it later. I'll explain it if you ask me outside of this. But basically, those videos took a long time to make. It was comedy videos, took a long time to make, and at the end of the day, they were almost just as hard to make as animation because of how time-consuming they were to film, to edit, everything like that. I really enjoyed it, and I was really trying to, again, find something outside of my work, some escapism for a project, for a creative project, because I do consider this art. But unfortunately, again, it just took too long. Walpole. So let's get to the Walpole bit. So my partner and I moved to Walpole last year, sort of just after the lockdown. It was a whole bunch of events that ended up pushing us in a very strange direction, and we ended up in Walpole. Not many people were working at the time, obviously, because of the lockdowns and COVID, and I sort of felt that fear as well. And I wanted to stay inside and try as much as I can to create stuff. And so I was working on trying to come up with like a Tomothy animated short for YouTube, something really ambitious, but yeah, it took too much. But as soon as we moved to Walpole, there was so much inspiration there. This is a picture of the inlet down there, which some people just don't even know there's a beautiful inlet down there. They just pass it by and go on down to Denmark or Albany. But there is, and it's really beautiful, and the local culture, there's so much inspiration there. And probably the thing that got me the most, that grabbed me, was they had a local newspaper. As you can see, it's quite amateur, but it's actually quite good because it's full colour, which is quite rare, I think, in a small local town. Yeah, it's called the Walpole Weekly. And usually, when I'm going to a small town, rural place, I always look for the local paper, just see what the local news is, to see like what weird things are happening, yeah, like what weird events they've got on. Not that they're weird necessarily, but they're, compared to the city, it's a whole different world. Hopefully my next picture relates to that, because that was a good segue. No, it doesn't. Okay, that's another picture of the inlet. It's beautiful. Okay. The segue didn't work, but it doesn't matter. So this is related to the inlet. This is the first comic I came up with. So being inspired by Walpole, I wanted to create something, and I didn't know what it was. And I saw this Walpole Weekly newspaper, and I thought they need a comic. Every newspaper needs a comic. This is a fact. So Jazz and I were out on the jetty by the inlet, and this massive jellyfish just swam by. It's about that big, and it's like stingers were spreading out meters. It was amazing, and the water was so clear and mirror-like, so we could see every detail. And so I thought this joke, which is real silly, but it came up as a sketch when I came home. My first thought, because obviously I've been working on all these projects over all these years, was, should I make this a Tomothy comic? Should I make the leap and put Tomothy in, try and put Tomothy in this local newspaper? But then I thought, Tomothy is for something else, I think. And this town needs its own mascots. Because that's the thing they were talking about. When I first moved there, they were talking about what's Walpole's mascot. People were saying it's big trees. Some people were saying it's quokkas. But nobody sees the quokkas. Nobody even knows there's quokkas there. So yeah, they were wondering what the mascot was. So I was like, well, maybe I can make a mascot, something like that. So I put this comic together with completely new characters, and the characters were all designed. I think I went completely down that direction of Peanuts and Charlie Brown, which was my inspiration, Calvin and Hobbes as well, just with the dotted eyes, because I hadn't really done dotted eyes for a long time. Most of my eyes are big googly white eyes, and I find that for some reason the dotted eyes, you can sort of identify with them better, that you can sort of put your own emotions into a dotted eye and see what they're seeing. And then I thought, well, I want to make this comic inclusive. I want to make it for kids, for the young people of Walpole. So I sort of I had an indigenous character, a character with glasses, a guy who really likes a helmet, a girl in a wheelchair. We have people of all types in Walpole, so I wanted something for everybody to relate to. And then I think this might be answer the thing I was talking about before. Yes. So Walpole Weekly is full of crazy stories and themes, and I think, like, I'm just talking about the inspirations of this town, why it made me do this. I love this story. I just wanted to put this in here. It just made me laugh. This was a guy. It's front page news. He runs the Treetop Walk, and he was in his garden, and he was going through his garden, and he got 2 holes in his hand, and he was like, oh my gosh, I've been bitten by a snake. So he was called the ambulance, went into full snake bite protocol, went to Albany Hospital, and then they found out it was just some fence that he was doing some gardening, got stabbed by a fence. So I thought that's the typical front page you want in your local paper. You wouldn't see that in the West Australian on the front page. So that just makes me love it so much. And then I noticed at the very top, welcome to Litter-Free Walpole, which is something you'll see if you go into Walpole, the very front there. They're very keen to sort of keep the town clean, and there's a lot of sort of unappreciated people who really go around and pick up the litter. There's an article there right about the vandalism as well, just trying to keep the place as tidy as they can. They really do, and it really is nice, and we do our part as well living there. And those traits of wackiness and the litter-free, everything just gives the town a character. It gives it a character, so it's sort of a character in itself. So I thought, this is the perfect place. It's like a little fictional universe outside of what we know anyway, like the city. So, perfect place for a comic. Oh, perfect timing. My arrow's not working. It just stopped. Oh,
It's
no.
the last one.
It's the last one. End of the show. No, okay, so now I need to go to my next one. So the next moment was I needed to get the confidence to give my newspaper, put my comic in the newspaper, or ask them if they'd be interested, because after years and years, I'm sure everybody knows of, you know, people turning you away and things not quite working out the way you'd hoped. I wasn't very confident about it, so I put 4 comics together, and just so I had some, you know, if they like one, then maybe they'll like the rest, or they'll want more. And then there was this one documentary that really inspired me. Anyone here who wants to do comics, specifically newspaper comics, there's a documentary that came out last year. Just open it up. Well, it's a picture from the documentary, and it's from an American comic strip called Beetle Bailey. I don't know if anyone's heard of it, but it's a very long-running comic strip, and what's so interesting about it is this is a family of generations of people that have been working on the same comic strip and just sending out, and they're so humble. They have their little workspace, they come up with their ideas, they work together to make sure the drawings are right, the jokes are right. And it just inspired me so much. I just thought, well, I just got to do this, because that's the life that I want. I want to sit in a little workspace quietly drawing, and not have the burdens of, you know, life to pull me away all the time. Something like so I thought I have to make the leap. So once I knew what I was going to do, I was creating the 4 comic strips. I wanted to create jokes based on different parts of what's inspired me about Walpole. First one, it's based around how cold it is. It's quite cold down there, as some people know, and so everyone has their wood and their wood fires, and it's quite cozy, and you've got that smell of the burning wood everywhere. So I thought, yeah, that's a good joke. It's the first joke to put in there, I think. But at the same time, this was really early on, so I was drawing a lot of these with Tomothy characters, you know, and then having to redo them. Yeah, so here's some location-based ones. So this one I always thought was maybe a bit limited in audience because it's so location-based. But I thought it was a good way to get into the hearts of the locals. You know, something kind of gentle and right up the street, this location. But I realized after this that it was too much, and I couldn't share it too much with people outside of Walpole. Anyway, but to cut the story short, Walpole Weekly enjoyed my comic enough, they put it in, and I've been doing it for just over a year now. You can grab a free Walpole Weekly at the table. So, what happened next in the story? I have to go by the pictures. I can't remember. Oh yeah, here's another example. This is a celebrity in Walpole. I had to ask his permission. But this is the little celebrity man. He's really famous in Walpole. You might not have heard of him, but he's really famous. You can trust me on that. Yeah, there's the inlet again, so using location-based comic strips or jokes. So next up, the Walpole Weekly agreed to have my comic strip, and what was next? Well, they actually hired me there as a trainee, and I learned a whole bunch of skills, grant writing, event management, and also working on the newspaper as well. And what happened was I did a grant for an event, and they asked me to put the characters on the poster. So what we had was my characters on this event poster all around the town, you know, all online, being shared to everyone. And I thought this is the first time anything like that's happened to me, where I can put my characters in a marketing spotlight that that sort of made them part of the town, you know. And I really like that. So I guess it sort of escalated from there, because I got contacted by another newspaper in Albany, bigger newspaper in a bigger city, asking for an interview. I've got a picture of the interview. There's my interview. Cartoonist draws on creating joy. And it was quite early. I think I only did a few comics at that point. But soon after that, they asked me would I be interested in doing another comic strip for their paper. So I got really excited. I was like, oh, what can I do other than Walpole Kids? So I wanted to do something slightly more grown up, maybe like a sort of aimed at teenagers. I guess sort of like a Tomothy. But then I realised I had no time for that. I was doing Walpole Kids Weekly for the Walpole Weekly, and I realised there'd be no time outside of that and my work to create something completely different. So I asked them if they just want Walpole Kids, since they're not in they're in the same sort of area, the Great Southern and the Southwest. They said yes, and they actually put the comic, which I found amazing, on the front page pretty much, or the inside of the front page. And you get that in Albany every fortnight now, but for a time it was every week. And that every time I see that, I get very happy, because that's, you know, the feel of the newspaper, everything about that. It's really cool. So we go on big adventures down to Albany just to grab the paper, so it doesn't come to Walpole. Anyway, so then Christmas came, and both newspapers out of the blue were asking me if I wanted to do colouring in competitions for their Christmas awards. So they had the Walpole Weekly were gifted a whole bunch of books and toys, the kids who won, and then the Albany kids won a trip to Albany Entertainment Centre to watch some sort of big show. Anyway, that's sort of irrelevant, because just the fact that they were winning a prize to go to do this by colouring my drawing was incredible. Obviously I've taken out their faces, but you can tell it's Christmas. Nope, that's my collection. There's another picture. That's the Walpole Kids, all with their colouring in pictures. I hope we get to do it this year. So next up, what happened next? Well, as the comic got released in Walpole and Great Southern every week, people started coming up to me asking, when are you going to make a compilation of these comics? Because we'd love to see it. So I didn't really think of that. I just, wanted to get the comic out there. But I thought, well, do I like compilations? Well, yes. This is my Charlie Brown collection, and you really just aspire to be, what your heroes are, and this is maybe a bit of an obsession. But the core of it is that it's a bunch of random Charlie Brown comic strips so that I can pick up, read any day I want, and the same with any other comic. Read a joke or read a story, and then you go on. And I thought, okay, well, I guess I can put a book together, just like I did with the Tomothy, because it's not the easiest project to do, just putting a book together. You can't just get it done. But luckily for me, my dad works in printing, and he was able to put a book together for me, and oh, I've lost it now. Yeah, so this is the book. You can pick it up at the store if you like. It's got all of the first year's comic strips. There's quite a bunch in there because I was doing it weekly, and every comic was really just based around a time or a feeling or something like that. So not only did I get a book done, I got some stickers done. It's pretty cool. And as a way of advertising the release of the book and the stickers, I asked the newspaper if they'd be interested in me writing an interview as the characters. So that's something I've always wanted to do because if you know the band Gorillaz, which I liked when I was younger, they always did interviews as the characters, always fictional interviews, never really by the actual artists. And I thought it was so fascinating to do that, so I did it myself. And I've actually done 2 of these now in the Walpole Weekly. You can pick that up. I've got a print of that actually down there. We did one for the book release, where the characters were all just chatting to the newspaper. It's just an old interview. And then I did one for the birthday as well, which was last week, just celebrating being in the newspaper for a year. And it sort of adds some personality to the characters that maybe was missing in the comics because it's all punchline based. And sometimes it's hard to get personality through. I try my hardest. Anyway, what happened next? Oh, it's really raining. These incredible knitted figures. These were made by a lady at the CRC, which is the Community Resource Centre, which is where I work. They make the newspaper. They are incredible. I'll pass them around. Here you go, don't break them. Is there one missing? Yes, she's down here. I can put her over here. The characters, by the way, this is Emily. I got Madeline, Jackson, and Patrick. Here you go. Don't need to. Yeah, so she put these together, and I was just amazed. She actually did a prototype as well, which I could show you. But I thought, well, how can I use these to my advantage and skills? So I put a comic together with them. And this is another collaboration. The collaboration case, as you can see at the bottom. This comic was made with, I guess, 4 people. So we got the joke, which is Jens over here. Photos by my partner Jazz. The knitted figures by Hilary from Walpole, and then I compiled it all together. And this is the jetty down there as well. And they're just so adorable, and the town loved it because, it was so different. So I sent it out there. I got people, who didn't never talk about the actual comic, but when this came out, it's such a community-based thing. Not only is it making a joke about community, which they love because they are a community, a very tight-knit one, but because of the cute little characters. I don't know what to say much about this one, but I got interviewed by the ABC around that time, and I was able to advertise the book and the stickers. But the ABC Grade 7 just messaged me out of the blue, and they were very exciting, and they did a full interview with me about making the comic strip. And actually, I put online a video. I won't put the sound on. I don't put the sound on. I don't want to do that. Yeah, I did a video of me actually making the comic strip. So as you can probably see, you might not, if you're an artist, you're probably not very familiar with this setup. This is an animation software that I've been using since I was animating. I had to edit out a lot of weird things where I was going on getting references off Google because I didn't want to get copyright problems. But so I think, not many people draw the comic strip on an animation software. This is me drawing the boat from the WoW tour. There you go. The software's really good. That's with lines and colouring. It's real nice. Anyway, if you want to watch that, it's got the interview on top of it. It's on YouTube. This is me not preparing for Mac usage. 10 minutes, cool. Alright, well, yeah. So that's pretty much the story of Walpole Kids, but so now I'll just talk about some of the individual comics and how certain elements of them were inspired by local specifically local living. Yeah, this is, ever since I moved there, well, one thing I noticed is that nobody has any letterboxes, no one has any post boxes. So for ages I just wanted to do a joke about that. You know, everybody goes to the PO box. I think my original joke was about fitting like a really long sandwich in one, trying to deliver a long sandwich, but I ended up just putting a kid in there instead. Local living. Now this one, very much local living, and quite serious at its core, because there's serious competition when you're in a small town like Walpole. We have very limited amount of restaurants and food and things like that, and so it's just not right to say that something's better than another place because somebody will hear about it and that will hurt someone's feelings. And at the end of the day, every business deserves its customers in a small town to keep the whole town going. So this is a very real joke. This is one I thought of very early on. Well, it's actually a true story. This is a true story. I wasn't shouting about the same things. But I was just walking to work and it's so quiet in Walpole. It's really quiet, it's beautiful, silence, no ambulances or whatever. And then one day I just heard bzzz. I thought, oh my gosh, something amazing is about to happen in Walpole. Like helicopters or something. It was an old man on his lawnmower. And that's George, by the way, the GTA guy. I brought him back. Anyway, yeah, so that's a true story. So if you go to Walpole, if you live in Walpole, it's just so quiet. It's one of the benefits. Going back to the inlet, an amazing part of the inlet. This is the only comic so far that's silent. Let's look into doing some more of that. This is another one that's based on truth. After looking out at the inlet for quite a while, my partner and I were really keen to get out there, so we bought ourselves a mirror boat. Unfortunately, we didn't know how to use it. It was too complicated, and we were too busy to work out how to use it. So we got rid of it, and we got a kayak instead. But yeah, so that's definitely based on truth. That's what I like about comics and any art anyway. Just because everything's like a journal, you know. You might even the most simplest joke can be based on something in a small way that happened in real life. And also, I like that design enough that it ended up on the cover. This is just another one, sort of about bushwalking and, you know, pastime in Walpole is go out bushwalking and seeing little critters and creatures, and almost every time you go bushwalking you see something. It's just wildlife down there. It's incredible. No quokkas though. None of that. Another sad, true comic here. Power cuts in Walpole are tragic, really. If there's a power cut, you know, sometimes we're without even the ability to make emergency calls. It's pretty grim, but they also happen a lot. And this was a week where one happened. So I thought, what's a good idea that incorporates the power cut and also means I don't have to draw very much. So I just painted 3 boxes black and didn't have to do any drawing. Oh, here we go, no quokkas. There's a quokka. Just another truth that no one's ever seen one. But they're apparently in Walpole. There's apparently colonies, I don't know if that's what you call it. There's a lot of them, but can't see it. I really want to make a character that's a quokka, proper little character. And I like the idea of a character from, like a quokka from Rottnest going to Walpole and interacting with Walpole quokkas, the sort of the different lifestyle they'd have. This one's based around the rural, regional living where everyone's so distant in their acreages and farms and everything. So you've got the core town, but most people you see will be living out in the middle of the bush, like completely isolated. So, and also I went through a little bit. I try and every now and then, if it complements the joke, I'll put a bit more effort into whatever the specific environment is. I think that there's one of the reasons I like doing it is the freedom of having the black and white and then the not black and white. But if it really complements the joke, to go all out on it. So this was a final one. The joke was actually a collaboration as well by my friend James, and I thought it was a really sweet one. And actually, I put it at the end of the book. It's at the end of this as well. It's just like it sends out a good message, and I think it shows what I'm trying to do with the comic. At the end of the day, I'm trying to please everyone, which everyone does, but I'm trying to please Walpole, and I'm trying to be as friendly, as inclusive, as wacky, as fun, a little bit surprising as well. You know, you got to keep people on their toes. But yeah, that's basically what Walpole Kids is, and I'm really happy that I'm able to do it. So I've got. Oh, actually, I'll just show you this as well. This is in the book, but I went around using, as part of my marketing tool, I was sort of taking pictures of Walpole. This is the community garden, and yeah. The future of Walpole Kids. The Walpole Kids has gone fortnightly now, just because of work and things like that, unfortunately. But it still runs in both newspapers, and I still have a lot of fun doing it, and I still look for those inspirations locally, you know, whether it be in events or in you know, shop local or litter free Walpole. The latest comic I just released was another litter free Walpole one. But yeah, this is my studio. My partner and I just moved to a new property in Walpole, and yeah, I'm just excited to continue and just do as much Walpole Kids as I can and see where it goes, really. Expand characters, create new stories, try and put as much in there as possible. Yeah, so I think that is the end. Does anyone have any questions? Oh, thank you for listening. Yeah, thank you.
So you haven't seen dinosaur?
Triceratops.
So you haven't actually seen a